Transformation of America. Transformation of America is the documented autobiography of a victim of government mind control. Cathy O'Brien is the only vocal and recovered survivor of the Central Intelligence Agency's MKULTRA Project Monarch mind control operation. Chiseled deep into the white stone of the CIA's Langley, Virginia headquarters is a partial verse lifted from the Holy Bible and writings of St. John. And the truth shall make you free. This statement, like the agency, is total reality. The building that it is engraved upon houses the world's most successful manufacturer of lies to facilitate psychological warfare. The company uses truth and technology as their raw materials to produce pure lies for control of you and America's allies. Within the pages of Transformation of America, you'll find the truth.
Dear brothers and sisters, this time I'm sitting here with my mother Rita to talk about the subject of Cathy O'Brien and MKULTRA. Rita, would you like to briefly introduce yourself and about your life and career and how many books you've written?
Hi, I'm Rita. I'm born in 1953 in Berlin, but I'm raised in Belgium and I studied later on in Brussels in the French language. I never felt really at home in any part of the world. At the same time, I felt at home in the world, and I've traveled a lot. I have 4 children from 2 different husbands. I'm divorced, and in 2002, after 20 years working as an independent family doctor, I decided to specialize in child psychiatry in Berlin.
What are your personal experiences of pedophilia during your career as a child and youth psychiatrist?
In 2002, after 20 years of working as a family doctor, I decided to specialize as a child psychiatrist in Berlin. I got accepted for an internship of 5 years in a well-known clinic. And during the first years, I gradually discovered that 4 males of our team were involved in child abuse. The men were of different ethnic and religious backgrounds. I worked to the police and with fathers of the children. We tried to make justice prevail. The children talked. The LKA, that is the criminal police in Germany, investigated very well. The psychologists said that the children were highly credible. Yet at the level of public prosecution, the whole procedure has been stopped. The lawsuit, which should have been taken place in 2006, is postponed till today. So nobody has been judged, the clinic is closed, and the abuse probably goes on.
I remember that in 2006 you left Berlin in a hurry. Why was that?
Well, an old, very rich man brought a little boy of 6 years old to the clinic for treatment. The boy was famished and addicted to heroin. Soon I discovered that this man abused the child. He had paid the drug-addicted gypsy mother a fee so he could use the boy. A neighbor of the man wanted to talk to me, but quickly got menaced with murder if she would. So finally, I decided to inform the police online with what I had seen. And during my night shift, I reported the case to the police online, and I decided to take this boy and his brother, who was abused too, in custody. And I succeeded in getting for them a treatment of 5 years for drug addiction and a nice education. Now the man had lost his favorite child, and he went to talk to my director. The director afterwards told me that he was threatened with murder and that I had to leave as quickly as possible Berlin because my life was also in danger.
Was that the reason why you wanted to leave for New Zealand?
Yeah, I tried to get a job in New Zealand at that time. Went to Auckland and Wellington, but since my German diploma wasn't recognized by the British professionals in New Zealand, I didn't get a job. However, What I understood is that the New Zealand people know that child protection is corrupted in Europe because most of them are civil servants who can't be fired, and they have a system where they try to help children by mobile little groups consisting of a nurse, a child psychiatrist, and a lawyer who quickly move from one place to another to help children who are being abused. I don't know whether that is still today the fact, but it's an idea to make child protection something independent of the system. And what I also heard in an airplane to Wellington from a police officer from London, he told me that he was on the run from pedophiles in Great Britain, that he was menaced by them and he wanted to save his family.
Was that the reason why you moved with my half-brother and my half-sister to Aruba, on the island in the Dutch Antilles?
Eventually, after a year in the Netherlands, I moved to Aruba. I thought a little island like that, barely 70 miles long, would be more transparent. But this wasn't the case. I could say today that Aruba is a pedophile paradise outside of every law and order. I didn't know that at the time. No doctor or medical doctor or specialist on Aruba can call the police when he sees an abused child, because then he could end himself in prison. So everybody closes their eyes. I wanted to help the abused children, mostly of them very small, and my office filled on a weekly basis with abused children. Finally, I succeeded with a female police officer and a female judge from Aruba to take one pedophile into custody. And this was the beginning of a dangerous situation, because the police and the Minister of Justice were very angry at me for meddling with them. The Minister of Health eventually told me that I was endangered and that it would be better to leave the island, which I eventually did. I tried in the Netherlands to make this situation public, but no newspaper would listen to me, so I decided to write Boa Aruba in the Stranglehold. Boa is now censored in Aruba. The stores are not allowed to sell it. And if I want to talk about Boa Aruba in the Stranglehold to newspapers in the Netherlands, they are not allowed to report on it. One reporter from Nationaal succeeded in putting my interview online.
This being said, we want to talk now about the subject of Cathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, the Tranceformation of America. Rita, you recently read for the first time these two books that were published in 1995 and 2002. What is your opinion on these books?
Reading these books was, for me, a very sad and heavy revelation. It's an incredible testimony of a child and a young woman who has suffered immensely by becoming an abused child by politicians and groups like the CIA, the Vatican, and many, many others, where she was prosecuted to, being at the same time tortured, electrocuted, and trauma-based, mind-controlled. Reading this very credible report was heavy, but it also opened my eyes to the magnitude of the global problem of pedophilia, which prevails in the highest circles, to make every politician blackmailable.
Can you summarize the essence of these books, Rita?
Yeah, Cathy describes in Tranceformation of America how she's born into a pedophile family. The family had been pedophile since generations, and she's practically abused since baby by her father. Later on, her father sells her to Gerald Ford, who would become later on the unelected president of America. And she comes in contact with Senator Byrd, who is in charge of the finances of the USA and the CIA. Byrd is a very mean pedophile who likes to hurt. He prostituted her to a lot of other men like Bush Sr., Dick Cheney, who's especially cruel. She had to participate in these very dangerous games where naked children and naked women have to run for their life in the woods, chased by these politicians. Afterwards they are raped and even sometimes killed. All these terrible scenarios she has lived through, she describes graphically and in detail, and it's very credible. She was forced to be together with Wayne Cox, serial killer, from which she became pregnant and got a daughter, Kelly. Kelly is also abused since she's very small. Later on, she was forced to marry Alex Houston, a country singer and comedian, but in fact, he too tortured her and prostituted her to the highest political leaders in this world. And she became also a transmitter of information which can't be written. She had to learn by heart, by her photographic memory enhanced by trauma. And she transmitted this information mainly about drugs and child trafficking from one leader to another. This includes leaders from Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Nicaragua, the USA. At the age of 30, she was scheduled to be ritually killed because at 30, all the brain cells can become active and the mind control could become less. At that point, Mark Phillips, a very decent CIA agent, and everywhere there are also very decent people, decided to rescue her and her daughter Kelly, as well as a lot of farm animals who were sexually abused too. And he saved them from Alex Houston. From then on, they were fugitives. They had to run to Alaska and hide from practically every group which you would think would protect them. But the CIA, the police, nobody dared to do something against this pedophile system. So they have fought 7 years or longer for justice. And then Cathy wrote Access Denied, the second book. Access Denied is better readable because during the whole book you feel her love for Mark Phillips and vice versa. The love of Mark has given Cathy the opportunity to recall what has happened, to remember that she's human, that she has a soul, that she can love and live. It's one of the strongest loves I've ever witnessed. I just learned that Mark Phillips died in 2017. I don't know the circumstances, but he was an outstanding man and a great loss for humanity. But as Cathy says, he's in a better place now.
What is trauma-based mind control, Rita?
I want to read a section about this because it's complicated. The controversy of what is and what is not mind control rages on among scholars in the schools of law, human rights, and mental health. All the while, the confusion of issues provides a form of legal protection for practitioners of trauma-based mind control, the only known form of remote human control that is absolute. All other forms of mind control, including chemical and electronic manipulations, are considered by mind control experts as temporary. Mind control atrocities, if committed by anyone who could be linked to government-sponsored projects, are typically ignored and covered up. Access to the courts by these hapless survivors is thus stonewalled by government-paid, so-called legal experts who receive their orders from the National Security Agency. Defining the term mind control is akin to defining the limits of the 1947 National Security Act.
Rita, why are they so keen on controlling our minds?
According to Cathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, this mind control has as main goal the New World Order, that a couple of the few rich people of the shadow government can have all the power, and that we are just the cattle or the sheep who have to follow, and part of humanity they also want to erase, particularly those who can think for themselves.
You have been the victim of unlawful action by the US government. Please, very briefly, inform us about it.
As a victim of U.S. government MKULTRA mind control, and that's something that's been going on for a long time in our country, and mind control is pervasive worldwide. There's a sliding scale of mind control, from information control to the kind of robotic mind control that I experienced on a White House Pentagon level, particularly during the Reagan-Bush administration. And it began because I was sexually abused as a very young child, and that made me a target for MKUltra mind control, because it's known that when a child has been abused, that their mind is more suggestible. It's as though the conscious mind takes flight and leaves the subconscious to be manipulated. So I was targeted for mind control because my father was caught sending pornography, child pornography, of me through the U.S. mails, and a local politician at that time by the name of Gerald Ford. He was only a local politician then, later went on to become the unelected president of the United States, and was very much responsible for thrusting me into MKUltra in their earliest years. When Gerald Ford went into the office of president, he had George Bush Sr. as his in position of head of intelligence, the head of the CIA. He had Dick Cheney as his Secretary of State, Donald Rumsfeld as his Secretary of Defense. This is the same handful of criminals that is working behind the scenes of the U.S. government and continues to work behind the scenes of the U.S. government to date. They do not represent the people, and they do not treat citizens with respect. They believe in mind control of the masses through information control, and they believe in absolute robotic mind control, like I was subjected to throughout the first 30 years of my life. Because when Gerald Ford found that pornography of me and thrust me into MKUltra, that was the beginning of systematic torture and abuse that made my mind receptive to the orders that I was given. Torture does not extract information from people. When a person is tortured, they will say anything that they're told to. And that, in my case, I was told to deliver messages to and from different government leaders, and I was forced to participate in criminal covert operations with the CIA. And that's detailed in our book, Tranceformation of America. So there's far more details that are available there. But that's how I ended up working as an MKUltra mind control slave on a White House Pentagon level, doing exactly what I was told to do for this criminal faction that remains in control of the U.S. government to date.
So what is your message to the public?
My message to the public is that each of us has to wake up to all these minor and major lies we hear every day, and ask ourselves every time we listen to the news, is this true or is the opposite true? What is behind the scenes going on? At the same time, we have to preserve our ability to love and to be open and to be caring about each other, because only love and truth can finally win in this situation.
And finally, we can make a short prayer for Cathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, that their souls are at least saved, that Cathy stays safe also in these dark times, and that all victims of mind control somehow find healing and a person that can actually help them. Amen. Many readings from Bad Bentheim, Germany, and cheers!